So they have 3 picks, like they have 3 picks. They have the guy who's
and you need to ask your husband if he's gonna sleep with the help. Why you asking me? I owe you nothing. Your husband does. See, and that's what we'll get into our next show with all this other stuff, but we're going attacking the woman and not laying the rules down with your man. If you lay the rules down with your husband, you won't have to ask that question to another woman. Go on.
You always have to be right. But I'm standing. I'm standing by what I said. Dominique was well within our right to state and to say, I'm gonna be looking hot. This is what's going on. But the lady who had the purple dress, man, she was Girl is crazy. All right, welcome back to Preachers of LA, episode 5, man. We moving right along with this, and it was a alright episode tonight. Yeah,
it wasn't any boom. I can't wait till next week.
Yeah, next week should be good, but let's go.
That's it.
Let's go on with the review. I know, right? That's it, right? So let's go on with the review first. Starts off with Wayne meeting up with Pastor Wayne meeting up with Dietrich. And they began to have like some bonding time in this kind of like karate place, and they were talking about some of the issues in their life. And you know what I noticed? Pastor Wayne and Bishop Noel Jones are 2 of the people that Dietrich seems to kind of like really like vibe with, and like really like is cool with. And it was good to see them talk, and they talked about Pastor Wayne, of course, told him about the issues with his mom and his brother, and Dietrich talked about his issues in his nanny drama, looking for a nanny for his kids. And it was pretty good. What'd you think about that scene? You weren't feeling this episode. She wasn't feeling this episode at all. But I mean, it was good. So we moved on from there. Then we get to Pastor Jay Hazlett and his wife Christy. And it starts off Christy sitting at the computer, and she's thinking about her son, and she tells him, she's like, you know what? I'm really thinking that, I want to, send, to bring him to California. I miss him, and, that's a mom for you right there.
What we noticed too is that and that's any family, but because we're talking about a show, how, Pastor Hayes is so quick to help someone else and not his own family.
Exactly. And that's what I want to jump on. It seems that Pastor Jay was hesitant with bringing his son back because he was a drug addict in Cali.
But we can also relate to that part too, because he kept saying, I've seen you say this and you've done this over and over again. So we can also relate to that part, because we do have some family members that will, whether it's drugs, any type of abuse, that keeps abusing you and say they'll change and they never do.
Exactly. But my thing with that is like you said, Pastor Jay, throughout last season and this season, it seems like he's gun-ho. He helped the transvestite lady who was confused. He helped Dustin. He helped all those other people. He lays hands on people. But it's just funny, and this kind of reminded me of certain people, who are super spiritual. They can pray for everybody else and do for everybody else, but they can't really like reach in, like help for people in their home. And it's like, that's what I was saying with him. How can you, Pastor Jay, go and do this stuff? I mean, you went out your way for Dustin, and then it's like for your son, you're hesitant and like, I remember when, and all this kind of stuff.
Because I think your family hurts you the most.
I think so too. And when it's somebody outside,
they can't hurt you because you're not emotionally connected like that.
That's true.
But your family can hurt you the most.
Exactly. So Christy goes ahead and say, you know what, I really want him here. I'm going to get a plane ticket. And Jay, he's like, okay, let's just go ahead and send for him. So we end that scene. Then we get with Pastor Cheney and Lady Maisha, who are at the gym. She's not twerking. He basically tells Lady Maisha, look, things have been going on with my mom. I really think it's best for her, to kind of like move in with us. Basically what he was going to say. And Lady Maisha is kind of like, I don't know about that. And she went on to say, a queen should have her own castle. And a king should have his own castle too. It's hard when you're a grown person and you got other grown people.
But it's also hard when it's your mom and you're trying to protect her. He didn't move her in just to move her in. He's trying to protect her because the restraining order was lifted. Exactly. So when it comes to, it being your mom, that's kind of hard. Someone that raised you and made you the person that you are,
why can't she stay with another family member? I mean, that just puts strain on it. To me, I understand it's your mom to whatever is taken care of, but I want that thing with Caleb to be like really like, you know, rectified immediately, because it's just like, that's kind of crazy. But hey, it makes for good TV. And so we get off that scene. Pastor Jay and Chrissy's son basically comes. They're sitting around dinner talking about, you know, good times, and then they jump on the bad times. And before they started, look here, Pastor Jay said, God, I want you to sanctify this food. I was like, okay, he nervous that his son is here, because why are you going to sanctify the food? You know, that just kind of got me right there. But, and now she's throwing food too. But, you know, I was just like looking at Pastor Jay's demeanor when he was sitting around the table communicating with his son. It was like he was waiting for a lull in the conversation to jump on, well, you used to do this and you used to do that. And I'm like, Pastor Jay, you know, that's kind of like, it was weird for me to see that, because you didn't do that during all the other people you helped out through your ministry, the outreach you've done. But like you said, why is it like that when you come to your son?
And then the moms tend to baby their sons.
Of course,
and I understand what Pastor Jay was saying. He wanted him to be a productive man and take responsibility, because he said that he'll spend all of his money and then come and look for a bailout. And that's, you know, he has a valid point. That is fair.
Yeah.
You can't spend everything and then come to me and say, I'm short for whatever. And you did. You had fun with your stuff. You know what I mean? So
Exactly. And so, you know, basically he brings up that, and Chrissy is like, okay, he brings up, you know, him opening the garage, and, you know, people are in there partying, and Chrissy's like, look, I can't take this no more, let's just stop. I don't like the way this conversation is going. You know, Chrissy's speaking out more this season than ever. I mean, she's letting her feelings be known, you know, even though she was crying a little bit. And so they get off that subject, and basically they just want to know, you know, if you move back to California, are you going to be different? Do I think a recovering addict should move back or go to a neighborhood where they once were on drugs and doing stuff? I honestly think no. Don't go back, because
it's going to be a relapse. It's going to be a relapse. You might fight it the first day. You might fight it the second day. There's going to be a relapse. In all
the cases with family members and some friends and people I work with,
being back in their familiar environment,
it's a relapse. It's a relapse. And one time I was with this agency, I knew they were in the middle of the projects. And I'm like, wow. And they had a rehab place in the middle of the projects. And they were like, well, we want to teach the people that no matter where you are, drugs are going to be there, which is true. Okay. And you got to have it on the inside of you. But I mean...
Because I was looking like it as a money, recycling the money that
exactly.
coming back
I said it was just a setup, because I mean... drugs that's a hard thing to kick. I mean, for anybody who knows people who've been on it, have had family members, that's something that devastates the family. That's a hard thing to kick. So basically, that's what they were dealing with right there. And then we get with Dietrich and Dominique.
And the nanny hunt.
The nanny hunt. This was kind of like entertaining.
Right.
Because we see the nice little preppy white girl who comes in. Well, not really preppy, but, you know, kind of very Soho, California, NoHo, North Hollywood. You know, she was like, kind of like, you know, okay, I can do this, I can do that. And then they asked her a question, Dominique did, do you think it's okay to sleep with another woman's husband? Which was, I think that's kind of valid to ask. I mean, when you're talking about somebody...
I don't think so. I don't think that's valid to ask.
If somebody's coming in your house and they're going to take care of your kids and they're going to be around your husband...
But you think yes, why, yes, I will.
Well, I think she asked because she wants her to know, look, I'm not naive, you're a woman, blah, 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 you're coming into my house with my husband and my kids. I know, but she wants her to know I'm up on game, whether you're going to tell me or not.
But we already know that. That's just an unwritten rule, you don't have to ask that.
Unwritten rules get broken all the time. I mean, come on.
So that's why I'm not going to tell you. So even if I wanted to.
No, but she was just letting her know, like, look, if you thinking that you're going to try to get in here and try to maybe sleep with my husband, I want you to know I'm up on game on that. That's not going to happen, which is why she asked that question. And I think it was, you know, it was worth her asking or saying that, because it's letting the nanny know, like, if you have some other kind of hidden agenda, it's not going to work. Because some people, even if you think it's an unwritten rule or unspoken rule that they should know, some people still try to cross those boundaries.
They're still going to do it if that's what they want to do, if that's their motive.
Yeah.
And so at that point, don't even have an age limit. Don't even go with 60 and above. Then at this point,
some people like that, Randy.
If you think I'm going to come into your house and, you know, take care of your kids.
So they have 3 picks, like that's... They have 3 picks. They have the guy who's
and you need to ask your husband if he's gonna sleep with the help. Why you asking me? I don't owe you nothing. Your husband does. See, and that's what we'll get into our next show with all this other stuff, but with going attacking the woman and not laying the rules down with your man. If you lay the rules down with your husband, you won't have to ask that question to another woman. Go on.
You always have to be right. But I'm standing. I'm standing by what I said. Dominique was well within our right to state and to say, I'm gonna be looking at. This is what's going on. But the lady who had the purple dress, man, she was just like, and kind of like, she was clearly, to me, like, she was like, I believe that the man in the house is one I should direct my attention to, blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff, and he is the head and all this kind of stuff. That may be good, but when you're dealing with a man and his wife, and and I learned this in church, you're the opposite sex,
right, you go to
a woman.
Right,
you go to that's rude.
Exactly, that was rude. Now we can agree on that.
Yeah.
That was very rude. And
rude.
You were being very fresh.
I think production probably talked to her about that to try to spice that scene up. Because I'm like, what woman would sit there and just talk to the husband and just totally ignore Dominique?
Exactly.
And Dominique, I'm gonna need you to, I say man up. I'm gonna need you to woman up on some of these scenes because I know you're young and everything, but it's just seemed like, I mean, you and Lady Maisha, y'all just taking the backseat, like very like the little damsel in distress on certain things. Just like,
moment I gotta get my chicken out of the oven.
Are you kidding? So basically, Dominique doesn't like any of the nannies and said goodbye. She said, I don't want none of them people around me or my
and
kids.
it wouldn't have been that I don't like any of the nannies because of, let's say, I wouldn't want a nanny because I don't want to feel the disconnect between me and my kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she did say that on the after show, that it would make you very jealous to see someone running to them, and those are your kids, preferring someone else more than they prefer you, so.
Exactly. And so then we get on with Mama Chaney moving in, with her son, Pastor Chaney. And then, every Pastor Chaney's happy, Mama's there, and Maisha is giving kind of like a little, oh my God, here we go, what's going to happen with this? And so, they have a little kind of like, it's kind of like, trying to be cordial, but it wasn't cordial. But, and then she goes and talks to the grandma. That scene with the grandma, I'm just looking like, why did they even put that in there? Was the grandma coherent? Was she in a nursing home or something? I was like, saying like, well, really, what's going on? I didn't get that whole scene. And by the time I went somewhere and I came back, they were praying. I'm like, what y'all praying for? I didn't just see this, come on y'all. If we don't have Loretta and Dietrich on there at the same time, and Gibson, honestly, we ain't got
But, honey, until then,
we ain't got nothing else to say. Stay tuned for next episode of Preachers of LA, which is still one of my favorite shows, but except for Love and Hip Hop. Love and Hip Hop keep me going, man. They give me episodes, they keep me going, man. I need a reality show to keep me going, man. But Preachers of LA, I know we gotta keep it very nice and conservative.
McClendon gonna be on next year.
Let me tell y'all something. McClendon, that's his son gonna be a preacher or whatever his son gonna do. And
his 2-year-old son?
I don't know. By the time this episode comes on, he might be 30. But I don't know by the time he gets on this episode, man. But McClendon is gonna be on next week, so that should be something to look forward to. And his wife's gonna be there, and then his little son, the guitar player, is he gonna make another appearance too? So he has a great family, man. So it'll be good to see Bishop McClendon, the diva, as they like to call him, and Dietrich. So until next time, that's all we got from this episode. Peace.
Pretty hurts.
You gonna sing Beyonce off of Preacher of the Day?
So, okay. If Jesus says yes, nobody can say no. When Jesus